We're back on the other channel, and today we are going dumpster diving in its purest form. We just picked up this 2001 Corvette, or what's left of a 2001 Corvette, for 4,500 bucks for one simple reason, and it's this guy right here, this Vortec V7 YSI supercharger. Now that kit's worth 6,500 bucks alone. So if, and this is a big old if, this survived, it's gonna be a good buy regardless of how bad the rest of the car looks. But of course the idea here wasn't to just pay 4,500 bucks for half of a used supercharger kit. I'm thinking that even though this thing is smoked from front to back, that there's still enough here, including possibly the engine, that we'll be able to salvage and sell off enough of them that we'll get ourselves this blower kit for basically nothing. Though, as one would expect by the way this car looks, we are certainly gonna have our work cut out for us. Where do you even start on something like this? Now, the way we usually do these videos is we'll hit the interior and then the body, then the suspension, then way down the line, we'll get to our engine and see if it all worked out. On this one, though, there's really just not much of a body left. I mean, really, the only piece we have, or that might have survived here, is this passenger door and the mirror that goes along with it. There is the top, and I can't imagine it would be good. For as rough as this thing is, though, it does look like all the mounting tabs survive. Sometimes in these wrecks, you'll see them just break out of the top right there. Everything functions properly, which is shocking. Would be nice if this thing was minty fresh, obviously, because it'd be $1,000 in our pockets. But considering the state of this car, the fact that we got anything out of the top, which again, you couldn't see in the auction pictures, call it half that, 500 bucks for somebody to paint it or wrap it or whatever they want to do with it. This is another one of those things that, given the severity of the wreck, I'm just surprised that it actually survived. You know, all the mounting points on it, none of them are all cracked up. There's not even really any physical damage to the door shell itself. That, however, is about going to do it for the body. There's really nothing else. Not a single part of this rear end survived. The driver door, the fender, none of that stuff was even with the car. I'm sure it was all destroyed. So now I guess we get to start digging into this interior a little bit. And it's a wreck. It is a wreck. The dashboard is right about where the roof should go. I mean, there is a lot of stuff in here, though, so there's got to be some value, right? Like, yeah. Clearly, even these Corsas, this might sound like a stretch here, all right? They're beat. They're dented up. All the brackets are jacked up. But I bet those tips, you can buy Corsa tips, and they're not cheap. So what do you say, we hack these Corsa tips off and get ourselves like 100 bucks?
Actually, why not?
Look at that. What a nice set of tips. Now, trust me, I am well aware of how ridiculous it sounds that we got 4,500 bucks out on a car and we're sitting here cutting exhaust tips off for maybe $100. But a lot of times, the only way stuff like this works out is by paying attention to the smaller dollars parts like that and get creative where you can, like cutting tips off of mufflers.
Take care of the panties because the dollars take care of themselves.
Somebody said that.
Somebody say that.
Now, as for what else we got going on in here, I don't think there's going to be a ton. Parts like this passenger airbag did survive, but look at the car. I feel like we can't take an airbag out of it. That just seems like a terrible idea. Pretty much all the interior plastics are jacked up, so I'm almost curious if there's gonna be some stuff we can find in the car. This is the original air filter that is full of stuff and also been plugged with a lug nut. I think there's a breather fitting there. That is some high quality engineering. This... Oh, I thought that was an electrical module. I thought that was like a Kinney Belt booster pump. Yes. From this angle, wow. That is a Holley dual fuel pump, or what's left of it. This is just the housing of a very similar fuel pump to the VR2 that we like to run. I think this is a smaller version. Yep. The other portion. That goes about right there. That's unreal. That is unreal. I'm curious what pump this actually is. 12-1800. So it looks like this is a 200 gallon per hour Dominator dual fuel pump. And not that it's worth anything at this point, but it was a $700 part.
Whoa.
Forced induction at a 43 PSI base pressure. It's rated for 1400. It's cool to see that they had some nice parts in this car. It bodes well for what we can find in the engine, but it doesn't mean necessarily that it's some 1200 horsepower monster. Now, this
that survived.
The cover for the front license plate hole in the front bumper. And it sounds small. It sounds like nonsense, but if it's factory, it's like 100 bucks. The only thing is, It feels a little, I don't remember the factory ones feeling this chintzy.
Yeah.
So yeah, quick Google search here. Looks like a lot of the OEM ones, or all of the OEM ones, have actual part numbers into the plastic. It's not just a sticker. That, coupled with the way it feels, it's definitely aftermarket, but it might still be worth $50. Can't say I've cut out a dashboard out of a C5 before. Yeah, this is another one of those things where like it looks good, but it's in such a bag of wreck you just can't, right? I really didn't have to pull that steering wheel out for anything, being that we're not keeping anything off it, but I did want to get a little bit better access to this gauge cluster, which is one of the parts in here that looks like it might have survived, and if it did, they're worth a few bucks.
Whoa!
I'm just in here throwing stuff around. There it is.
Is that plugged, dude?
What's that?
That's plugged.
Yeah, it is plugged in. I don't even know where the OBD2 port went, but we got ourselves an HP Tuners. What a uninstall. What a uninstall. As funny as it might seem, there's actually multiple parts on here that are still good and worth a few bucks. Number one is this little heads-up display bezel, if we can get it off without breaking it. This down here, along with the actual heads-up display unit itself, it's 200 bucks. That didn't do anything. I thought that was going to be cooler. Then we got the most important part here, and the most expensive, and that's our gauge cluster. Now, these things, if they're in good shape, are worth like $250. I think we kind of have to assume that everything on this car has some form of damage, whether it be water damage from sitting out there without a top on or what. So pretty much every electrical piece we pull out is going to have to get sold for parts for somebody to use because they have a messed up face or they want to rebuild it or want to take on a custom project. So that considered, I think this is probably like a $100 part, but a $100 part out of a dashboard that you had to cut out of the car, yeah, I'm gonna take that. I'll take it every time. A little center console armrest, which despite the fact that it's really dusty, is actually in nice shape. It's probably the only part of this interior that you could actually say that about. Good as new, right? Good as new, except that giant stupid handprint that I just put in. You see that?
You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to clean it and keep it clean.
I'm not a detailing guy, obviously.
We can tell.
We're about to be, though. We're working on something here.
Yeah.
We're working on something for not detailing guys.
We're cooking.
Yeah. Now, what we're really after here are these electronics. Come on. There we go. In the center console. These are notorious for having issues anyway. The LEDs on the climate control will burn out. So there's a big market for people to buy these, even if they are damaged, to rebuild them and resell them. So, even though this thing's a little jacked up, it's got one of the bolt holes broken, it's still probably at least $100.
I kind of feel like we've been saying $100 for a little bit.
I know, if only we could get something like, where's that $1,000 piece? It's kind of the same deal with this radio. And we got this shifter, which looks really crusty, but if it's aftermarket, it's actually worth something. Come on, there.
Oh,
I
that's
can
nasty.
taste a shifter. So yeah, this
Wow.
is definitely a stock C5 shifter. Everybody upgrades to C6 shifters in these because they're just a lot nicer. But hey, this permanently installed her shift knob's like 50 bucks. And one of the only other things here is this pillar of after.
Whoa.
I suspected that that would be held in by more, and it was not. It's this pillar of aftermarket AEM gauges. Now, all the gauges survived, the pillar even survived, but that's not going to mean a lot unless the sensors and everything attached to the gauges also survive, which we're really not going to know until we get into the engine. So for now, I suppose we'll just get the wiring out, get these out, and then start pulling these through as we get the drivetrain out. What do we even have here? We got the wideband. We got a boost gauge that reads 35 pounds, which is a lot of boost, and a fuel pressure gauge. And the very, very last thing we have here is our gas pedal. Not only, geez, look at that, what a wreck. Not only is it worth about $100, But if this engine did survive and we end up putting it in something, it also uses a drive-by-wire throttle body, so we need the pedal to match so we can make it run. It really does feel weird that there's so much left in this interior, at least visually, yet there's no other real value. Everything in here is just in too bad a shape at this point. The only thing that even resembles the part it originally looked like is this driver's seat, and that is cocked like 10 degrees that way. The bottom of it's full of water as well. But all in all, between the few bigger parts we have here and then the just random odds and ends, the stuff that needs to be rebuilt, the ridiculous stuff like the Corsa exhaust tips, we came out with $1,650. So not only does that mean we've made a third of our money back, but it also means that now we get down to the fun stuff. This is sketchy. Like real sketchy. This is like a 20-minute job putting on the lift. It's pretty stable.
Ain't going anywhere.
I think what we'll do is put a pole jack under here just as a little added security. Now, the way we usually do this is start with the suspension. We'll get all that off, then move on to the next part. With this, because there's so much that's just destroyed, I think the only reasonable way to approach this one is just, we see a good part, we take a good part. This is gonna be more madness than it is method. This is also the first real good look we're gonna get under this thing. It is terrifying on a lift. It was really terrifying on a forklift, so it's not necessarily something we wanted to be standing under. So what do we have? Well, the engine from the bottom at least looks pretty well, here's a tip. Don't put a cut stainless fuel line into the top of your head. It hurts. At the very least, the oil pan's not broken in half or anything. Oil filter's pretty well dented in. Ooh, what do we have there? You can barely see it up through there, but it's an aftermarket lower pulley made specifically for the supercharger. And judging by the belt there, it's an 8 rib, which is definitely an upgrade. So that's a nice setup. We've got aftermarket headers, obviously, which somehow, again, like survived. This is just normal damage that you see from the auction loader sometimes. Got a little bit of a dent there. But that likely means they're cooks, and that's an expensive set of headers. And at least back through the X-pipe, they're good. Once you get back here, things kind of go south. This here is what's left of our transmission brace. That's gnarly. I haven't seen that before. Oh, an aftermarket rear differential mount, which is not mounting the differential anymore. That's for sure. Look at our exhaust. That is completely and utterly flat. I'm sure we're gonna find some type of damage once we get it off, but the transmission from here at least looks okay, and that's good because they're worth a lot of money. It's a T56. This is our torque tube, aka the fancy drive shaft, and you can see up there, it's cracked completely in half. The front side, I presume, oh yeah, the front side is too. This is our bell housing. That's the torque tube. They're supposed to be bolted together, and they ain't bolted together. This here's our fuel tank, and we knew that was kind of busted up, but it's bent around the frame, which is just wild to see. So here, all we need to hope to survive is the fuel pump that's attached to that billet hanger up there, though. Seeing this, I'm not real optimistic.
There you go.
I don't think this survived, but it's not that damaged.
What can be fixed?
I don't know if it needs to be fixed, honestly. This is one of those things that, like, you couldn't in good conscience sell, but we could definitely stick it on the rack for the Pro Charge project we have coming up, because this is the orientation we need for that.
Just paint it black is gonna look brand new.
No, I got a different idea. I think it needs to be painted gold.
Oh.
I think that would fit behind there somewhere. We've officially found the first of our sensors from our gauges in our oxygen sensor here. Not only is the sensor itself bent, but the wires up there got pinched and cut too, so this one is gonna be no bueno. This is gonna be a gauge only type sale. Also, fun fact, that is where we just pulled our oxygen sensor out of. That is another O2 sensor bung that is plugged. And here's a third one that was just left wide open. This didn't have any plug in it. We didn't pull that, so that's just been puffing out there for who knows how long.
Why is the entire car shaking?
I think you know the answer to that.
I don't like that.
Yeah, usually they don't shake around like this when the torque tubes are in one piece. That's something. I don't even have words for it. It's just something.
There we go.
This is actually a little worse off than I was originally thinking, so probably isn't a good option to go with the header, but a little project for my buddy here, and this is gonna need a 3-inch X-pipe, so I'm gonna hack it right there, and do a little recycling, as they call it. Oh my God. That's a brake caliper.
Whoa!
That's not, like, oh, how's that even happen?
That's not supposed to be there.
No, indeed it is not. Well, usually that comes right out, so to give you an idea how bad this thing is.
There we go. Whoa!
That's supposed to be
Straight.
dead flat. Incredible. Incredible. Look at that. It's broken all the way around. There's not a single bolt that's still in place.
Wow. It worked.
Crazy. As it sits right now, I don't think it's even possible to unbolt this rear subframe and drop it down. Usually we drop the drivetrain down all as one. That's what's nice about Corvettes. You can do that. But not only is this rear subframe in like 8 pieces, you can't even access half of the bolts. One's gonna be back there. One is right up there. The 2 on this side, maybe. Yeah, you can probably get to these 2, but I think what we're gonna try to do here is just start getting everything we can out of the back of this, piece by piece, and just see where it takes us. Got it. That's the fastest axle remover ever.
Wow.
Yep. So I think we'll stick a pull jack here on the back of our differential, and that should let us take out everything else without the trans and diff falling. And if I sound not sure about that, it's because I'm not sure about it, but we're gonna do it anyway.
Maybe we got another one in the front just in case.
Yeah, it's never a good time when you need a lift and 2 pull jacks to work on a car, but you know, oh boy.
There we go.
Something's still holding it on. Supposed to be a box frame. Looks like abstract art. Tell me why it still looks like this rear diff mount survived.
This is billet, you know?
It actually looks like it might be good. It's perfectly straight. It just ripped the bolts out of the diff. All things equal, I prefer the diff to survive, but hey, if a diff mount's the only thing we have, I will take it.
What?
No, it's just hung up on the stud. I bet we hit it with a pry bar and just... The only thing this is going to be held on by is the axle, so... Probably should have counted for that, but given the circumstances, it's like the least of the mess here. And we can finally get this brake caliper out of here.
Do you think it's still good?
No, like, I don't know. I mean, yes. But like as a core only, like given the circumstances, you know, but it does look like a really fresh caliper prior. Yeah. Now it really feels like we're working in a salvage yard, doesn't it?
Yep.
Look how bent that is. Well, it is.
We try.
Technically okay. This bracket here is bent, but for whatever reason, not for whatever reason, it's because the stuff's cheap. People really love like damaged parts. If people can buy something that's like half damaged but still usable, there is certainly a market for it. That's an ECS diff brace. It's $450 new, and even in this kind of condition, needing that bracket straightened, it's probably at least $150 part. Only kind of like wild card thing about the damaged parts is when you post them, sometimes they sell immediately because there's somebody out there just looking for a deal and they've been waiting for it. Other times, they just sit around. So you really never know what you're gonna get. You're always gonna get money out of them. It's just kind of a question mark as to how long it's gonna take to get your money.
Oh.
Well, yeah, it's all on the floor, so I guess that checks out, right? Not much left in here.
That looks kind of
very
nasty.
sludgy, I guess, given the circumstances, though. There could be worse ones to find a little bit of metal in. Do you see that? So we thought this one was going to be like a parts differential because the case is broken. It's a parts differential because the case is broken and there's a little bit of metal in the oil. So I suspect this will be one of those ones that does take a little bit to get anything out of. All right, now follow along here. It's gonna be a real seamless transition, all right? If you happen to find yourself in possession of some slow-moving, damaged Corvette parts, and I really could have spun that out a few more times with this, or in the more likely scenario, you just get a little tight before payday or incur an unexpected expense, the sponsor of today's video, Clover's got you covered. That looks real nice, huh? Yeah. A lot better than the diff.
Way cleaner.
With Clover, you can access up to $400 before payday, all with no credit check, no late fees, and no interest. You can wait a few days to receive it, or you just pay a small fee and you can get it instantly. Look at that. It's not broke like the other side, but that is U-shaped, a swoop, I guess. Plus, there's no membership or any nonsense like that. Cried to get in advance.
That's impressive.
There's a rock in the axle.
Wow.
So no matter what the reason, guys, if you're short on cash and you need a little breathing room, check out Clover. Get the link down in the description so they know I sent you. Now look at this gem. Now normally if you had one of these 3-rib differentials and it wasn't all jacked up like this one, it'd be $1,000, potentially even $1,200 based on the mileage. But considering this one is a parts diff if I've ever seen one, between the housing damage down there, the fact that this rear cover's dented in a little bit, and the fact that the fluid was a little chunky and metallic, I'd say this one's probably not even half that. It's probably more like $300-400. On this one you got the ring and pinion, maybe the LSD inside of it, and then the side covers. So it's really not much, but again, someone that has a damaged ring and pinion, they might need it so it still has some value. Now on the transmission, I think we have a better shot here of having it at least somewhat have survived. Still, even as far as we've got into it now, I don't see any physical damage. I think the torque tube and the differential took the brunt of it, because after all, the transmissions in these, they're kind of just floating back here. They're not actually hard mounted to anything. Unfortunately, one thing there is a bit of damage to is all this body material up here that's kind of pushed over on top of the transmission. So I think a lot of those bolts are going to be quite hard to get off. So I'm thinking we're going to try this a bit of a different way. We're going to unbolt everything and just see if we can pull the trans and the torque tube back as one unit. Do that again, the whole body's flexing.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. That's moving, and that's moving independently of this. I need, hold on one sec. I need 2 inches. There we go. Voila, up and over. Okay, perfect. Also, fun fact, didn't unbolt this, so those bolts sheared as well. So check this out. This don't feel bad. Looks good, right? Spins smoothly. This don't.
Oh, but that's spinning though.
So that's spinning.
Yeah.
All right, check up here. Go up to there.
I didn't lose the Bluetooth connection.
Something's weird.
There we go.
Oh, look at that. Look at this.
Ain't supposed to be like that.
That is a crooked shaft.
Yeah, they make medicine for that, you know.
Okay, well, I think it's safe to say that's trash. The question is, what do we have here? And I think no matter what we find, it's still gonna be like a rebuilder type transmission, because it just has to, right? Now, it really does seem like most of that damage was contained to the torque tube, and of course the differential. That looks plenty straight. That looks plenty straight as well. And everything spins freely. It feels nice. All the bolt holes, this entire face where it sits up against the torque tube, there's nothing broken. At first, kind of thought that might be a crack, but that's just like those stress marks that come in aluminum castings from the factory, covered in a little bit of oil. Now, if this thing wasn't damaged, it'd be like a $1,250 transmission. Even though we're not gonna be able to get that full $1,250, we should still pull $750, because even if this thing was toasted on the inside, the cases alone have a lot of value. Plus, there's a lot of companies out there that'll take this, they'll refresh it, they'll rebuild the entire thing, and then sell it as a built unit for like $5 grand. So even the worst of the worst, as long as they're not blown in half, are still worth a good bit of money. Now, as far as this rear end goes, I don't think there's anything else of value except this fuel pump setup, and I don't even really know what this is. It's an odd design. It's like a sandwich plate that goes in between the stock fuel hanger and the gas tank. It says it's made by K-Fab. I'm definitely intrigued by it, but I don't know if it's an aftermarket fuel pump setup or it's just a return port and a feed to a secondary pump to the Holly pump that was...
Probably.
Yeah, see, we're working this out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's probably not even anything special in here. It's probably just a large feed. A really clever way to tap your fuel tank to go to that Holly fuel pump that was mounted up in the front of the car. So yeah, glad we figured that out on the fly. So we have a broken housing with a worm clamp with like a Walbro or something fuel pump on it. Oh look, it's an Aeromotive pump. So this is the first time I've seen this setup, but the way we're going to interpret this is this little plate here. It's just a fancy way that we may or may not be able to get off easily. Yeah, it was just a fancy, better way to add an auxiliary fuel pump. This still like served the function of a main fuel pump when the car is not under boost, and then when they hit it, there's something, probably a Hobbs switch up there in the engine bay that triggered that secondary fuel pump. And again, just a cool way to do it. Usually we're tapping the fuel tank, we're running fittings into plastic. That always feels kind of sketchy. Now, as for how much this costs, I don't know. It seems like an older brand. Their site's a little outdated. I can't actually find them for sale anymore, which is unfortunately the way a lot of C5 stuff is going. But ECS does make a really similar one. That one's $350, so I guess we can call this $200. Yeah. That does the same thing. It's actually in really nice shape. It's one of the only parts on this car that is in really nice shape. But either way, between this, the differential, the transmission, these plates are blow-off valve, which might be worth $50, or we might just hold on to it and throw it on a project at some point, and random odds and ends like the brake calipers. That's another $1,500, which means we've already recouped $3,150 out of this thing. And given the way this car looked, did you think we were making that back before we dug into the one part that actually survived the engine?
Yeah,
no,
not at all.
Definitely not. I was going to be happy if we got ourselves back 2,000. Because keep in mind, all we're really after here is the engine and the blower kit. There's still a bunch of parts here, like these Corvette-specific Cook's headers if they survived, and our little TAC module, which controls the drive-by-wire. There really is still a lot of nice parts here, to the point I'm almost kind of confident. I don't know if confidence is the right word given the state of this car, but I am confident that we'll get our $4,500 back, not counting the supercharger or the engine. Well, it definitely took some digging, but we are finally here, boys, and this looks as good as you could ever expect from what happened to this car. I don't see any damage on that whole accessory drive, except, as I'm saying it, the plastic power steering pulley has a chip or two on the outside. But if that's all that happened here, I'm gonna take it. We're fine with that. But this bracketry, this whole blower drive setup, this is wild. I've often said I wasn't the biggest fan of centrifugals type superchargers like this, primarily because of this. It's just such a wild setup. There's a lot of spacers, a lot of pulleys, a lot of brackets, and it always just seems a little over-engineered for the results, but nonetheless, it is really cool. So there is a main 8-rib belt set up there that controls our blower and I guess our blower only. Then on the back of that pulley, there's a 4-rib belt set up that goes to another pulley that goes to the power steering and the alternator, and I guess the AC is on a different or maybe the same 4-rib belt. I don't know. I guess we'll see more of that once we get it off. But this is just such a far stretch from what a stock accessory drive looks like on these cars. I still think the weirdest part of this whole deal, though, isn't the fact that none of this got damaged, or at least nothing that we see yet. It's that everything does look stock with this engine. It's just not the supercharger that you would expect on something like this. Maybe it's one of the deals where they were like building the car, we're gonna do a built engine later. I mean, there's still a stock LS1 intake manifold and throttle body. Not that there's anything really wrong with that, but it doesn't quite match up with this level of supercharger. There's also stock head studs down there, or head bolts. Having a stock or a potentially stock LS1 hold up to a YSI or what a YSI is capable of is pretty wild, because that is not a small supercharger.
Whoa. There we go.
Cool, that was something. This ain't been tensioned in a while. I do have to say, as complicated as these are sometimes, these blower drive systems, I really do appreciate the engineering that goes into them. It is not simple. Go ahead and yank our alternator off here. Well, the plan is, as long as we don't find any crazy damage, to leave this engine with the blower on it and stick it right up there on the rack O engines. But we do have to pull the alternator off, at least temporarily, because obvious reasons, right? Probably don't need to explain that one.
We could have cut the frame too, but
2 bolts seems easier, right? We've exhausted the Sawzall blade budget in this video. We are done. Probably not done, but I'd sure like to be. Get our TAC module out of here. And the beauty of this is we are about to pull. Ooh, it's just the connector that's cracked. Got scared there for a minute. The beauty of this is that we are about to pull $350 out of this thing. Because assuming we do put this engine in something, we'll just swap it over to an LS3 throttle body, the bigger setup, which means we won't need this, which means we can sell it because it's in good shape and it's worth a lot of money. Then we got our old school ECU here. Now, the more modern ones are called the E38 ECUs. They got the ribs in them, the heat sinks, and 3 much smaller connectors. All right then. Well, the bracket didn't survive. That was quite brittle. We almost had it. Check this out. This is the other half of our fuel pump. And obviously I wish this was in better condition, but it's still just impressive, I guess, nonetheless. Now, suppose we don't have to do this right now, but there's no time like the present, right?
yes.
We gotta get this Tilton master cylinder out, and for obvious reasons, I don't wanna get under the dashboard. So we are doing it via borescope. Might have took a little bit of work, but new. It's like a $275 master cylinder. Used like this, $150.
Whoa. You good? Whoa.
Well, that's not supposed to work like that. I guess because the strut is bent. Wake you right up, right? Now, one of the other things we're gonna go ahead and get out of our way here before we drop the engine down is our ABS module. And usually we don't even really talk about these, but on C5 Corvettes, these are what C6 window regulators are, if you know what I mean. They are incredibly expensive. Now, unfortunately, with this one, not only does it look to be leaking because the bottom is just soaked, it's also been open before. You can tell all these bolts, they have tool marks on them, and this one's just straight up missing. So that does not bode well for the value of this thing. Now, it looks like based on that part number right there, this one would be about $1,100 if it were nice, but people like these things original, low mileage, and definitely not leaking or haven't been open. So I think this one, at the very least, needs rebuilt. It's probably gonna be half of that, maybe even a little less. I'd say $300–400. You can also finally dig out this Mighty Mouse catch can, which right there with those improved racing cans we use, these are definitely one of the best out there. Made in the US, it's like a $350 piece new. Filter needs a little straightening.
Oh, there you go. Brand new.
Good as new, right? So we are pretty much all the way there. Our subframe's loose, our engine mount bolts are off. Really the last thing we have to do is drain our oil. And I know usually we're doing this a little bit sooner, but we've had such bad luck lately that I feel like we're due for a change of strategy on this one.
I was right.
Where the hell did that come from?
Yeah. You know, sometimes I really hate to be right.
No, you don't. You love it. I
No,
know,
I
know
don't.
you love it.
I swear I don't like it.
There's nothing Fernando loves
No.
like being right. I know it sat outside for a bit, but it's not a fire car. It's not like the valve covers were open, right? It couldn't have got in the throttle body.
Catch can, I guess.
The catch can was lower than everything. It wasn't full of water. Well, this strategy is not happening again. Is it bad that you're like numb to this at this point? Like,
Not really.
I guess this is what happens when you buy junk constantly, but this one is the most shocking for sure. Oh my God, what?
Wow.
Dude, what?
What is
That is,
that?
that's, it looks brown, that is not oil. I mean, there's a little bit of oiliness to it, but it's certainly, it's more wet than oil should be. No, now we're getting there. Now we're getting to the oil.
Dang it.
I was not prepared for this one.
How?
I don't know. We're gonna put it down after this finally drains out.
It didn't catch on fire.
Nope.
There were no fire hoses involved,
Nope.
presumably.
And there was nothing open to my knowledge.
I had a torn intake coupler right in front of the throttle body, but that's
the closed throttle body.
Yeah.
And like that would have had the.
Yeah.
That's a tough one, you know.
You're sure? I mean, it wasn't coolant.
No, it was water. I know what. Trust me, I got experience in this, brother. All right, water. Where did you get in? And the first thing I see here is this little breather on the back of the valve cover that's open that I didn't notice before. It's up under the cowl here, but I suppose, again, usually on these fire cars, the cars you expect to see that on, you have like an oil fill cap that's melted off of it. On this, there's really nothing. Other than that, we did have a ripped coupler on the throttle body, but I don't really see any signs of water in there. It's all just kind of oily residue. And the throttle body blade was closed, which of course it can trickle through. That looks like a normal intake. This was perfectly sealed to our Mighty Mouse catch can. That vent's blocked off. I don't know. This is interesting.
Weird.
It is.
Maybe a cracked manifold. I mean, the
Yeah,
car's
could be.
been through all of this.
You can see where it's like back into the firewall there. The thing is, it wasn't sitting this far down until we took the trans and whatnot off of it. So, you know.
Yeah.
Now, before we drop this thing out and deal with our little unexpected surprise here, I feel like it's important to recalibrate, right? Between all these other parts we just pulled out of the car, that's another $1,200, which means we only have $150 in this thing technically. So even if this engine's trashed, we still got a good blower kit, at least I think. Maybe be water in that too. Let's hope not. If you watch these salvage videos before, you know that $150 is kind of like a retail number. It's probably more like $1,000 we have in this car at this point. Because when we go to sell this stuff, you're gonna have things like selling fees on the platforms like eBay that wipes out 10%. You're gonna have cost to ship some of the stuff, so it's gonna get ate into a bit. But still, $1,000 for this, we can't complain, right?
Not at all.
Not at all. Even if the engine's bad. I'm positive something's gonna get hung up here. Can't not. Like it already is. Here we have it. The waterlogged spoils of our battle here. Well. The manifold's not cracked on the back. So again, this is really the only spot I can see water getting in, and it was under the cowl, which is the craziest part. One thing that's immediately obvious here though is this damage on the bell housing is even more impressive once it's out. There might be a bolt holding that on still, yeah, that one right there. But if we look inside there, we've got a Manic twin disc clutch. We'll obviously see a lot better once we get this bell housing and clutch and whatnot off. But I still don't see any damage to the block, which full of water or not is definitely a good thing. Same deal with everything on the side. It's not like the engine mount brackets broke or ripped off the block, at least not on the passenger side. Yeah, this one's fine over here too. I don't know, the more we deal with this thing, the weirder and just odder the whole situation gets. But we're gonna figure it out. Just get her up off the subframe and start digging her into her a little bit. But before we do that, I feel like it's probably about time to, you know, it's paid its dues. It's given us enough time for the metaphorical ejectocito, cuz. So far on the bell housing.
Wow.
I mean,
Impressive.
yeah, like it sounds so weird to say stuff like this is impressive because obviously none of this is good, but the way things break, I do find that interesting, and I think pretty much everybody, you have to, so on some level, right, find that cool. If you appreciate the way things are put together and built, you have to appreciate the opposite of it too. If you look at the pressure plate, that there, it's not in line with the splines on the clutch discs, which is also out of line with the crankshaft. This is bent. About to be more bent when I drop it. Oh my God. Wow. Whoa. Yeah. Yep. How close you think this thing is to just pew?
Solid.
Yeah, it was, actually. This reminds me of the Gravitron. You remember that at the carnival? Now, what I suspect is going to be the last little bit of value we get to pull out of this engine, at least things we're planning on selling, are these Cook's headers. And they do have a few little dents on them. It's just on this driver's side right here, these two rear runners, and based on the way they look, I'm thinking it was probably the steering shaft that did it. We all watched that Engine Masters episode back in the day. That don't matter so much for power, you're not gonna be able to tell a difference. But unfortunately, it definitely matters from a price standpoint. No one's gonna wanna pay top dollar for a set of headers that has dents in it. Now these are $1,300 headers new. If they were in great shape, you could pull $900, maybe even $1,000 out of them. With the little dents like this, it's probably like half a new $650, $700. Now we got this thing halfway clean. Everything we see still screams stock motor here. Based on that part number right there on the block, it is a 5.7 block. The 241s, that's the factory LS1 heads. Again, factory head bolts, a factory looking head gasket underneath of it. Now the one thing that makes me second guess that though is if you look at this rear cover here, the one that holds the rear main seal on the crankshaft, those bolts aren't original. Also, not that this is really anything to go by because it's common to replace a leaking gasket. It's got Felpro, the blue valve cover gaskets, and of course, the crank pulley's been off. I think best case scenario we're looking at here is a stock LS1, which is like an upgraded cam, which is great and is also hopefully not full of water. Oh yeah. Dual valve springs, water. Stock rockers, aftermarket bolts, dual valve springs. And look at that. It was that. It was that open breather. It's got a trunnion upgrade as well. Check that out. It's not the little half moon stock style, so that's cool. What do you think? Rusty plug? Yay, nay?
Yeah, no. It's going to be clean.
I'm hopeful. I really am.
There we go.
1 down, 7 to go.
Yeah.
I guess this is the one you're more worried about, right? The further you get back.
It's going to be perfect.
It is. I think it is. This checks out that it should be fine if our theory holds up there.
There we go.
Nice.
Jeez.
You can't pick that thing up and not do that. It's so dumb, but you know.
Whoa. Whoa.
Don't.
It doesn't look bad. Man.
It looks like it's been sitting.
Mm-hmm. There's a little bit of like rustiness right there, but that's also a spider web in there, so.
So it's 100% a stock piston. It's exactly what they look like. So that checks out. Do you see that scoring in there? I caught a glimpse of it.
That's scoring?
Yeah, it's a little...
It is actually very, a little heavy right there. It sat for a while.
At one spot right there. I actually think this was bound up out here.
Yeah, it's right there.
Yeah.
What is that?
A leaf.
Oh.
That's just a leaf. No, I think all the belts were like rusted. It does, but I think a lot of that's the front drive here. Look, watch the water pump go around. This thing had to sit forever because that's where the belt was. And it's just, nothing sounds, ooh, look at all that. There's leaves. You can see where stuff was stuck to it. The belt, a rubber belt, has rust on it. Just transferred over. For what we've seen out of this, for the way this car looked, can you ask for anything else? One other nice little thing you can see on here now that we got all the gunk off it is it's got Ditchworks 1000cc injectors in it too, with adapters on the top of them to make them mate to the factory harness. We should probably turn it over, get a look inside the oil pan, and also make a horrendous mess. But to be fair, Getting all this questionable oil out of it, the stuff that was inside the valve covers, not a bad idea. LS quiz. I know Tim knows the answer to this.
Okay.
What do they call these oil pans?
Ooh.
They have a nickname.
Actually, I kind of remember it, but I forget the name.
So you don't remember
No.
it?
Yeah.
I kind of remember it,
Yeah.
but...
That makes very little sense to me.
Yep.
So I do remember they got like a special name or nickname, but I don't remember how they call them.
I used to call the Batwing.
The Batwing.
Oh.
The Batwing.
I call it the Batwing.
I feel like the only way this goes south now is if there was enough water in here that it got... Okay, it's a lot of sludge. Well, we knew we were in for that. You saw it come out of that pan.
Yeah.
Okay, let's make sure it didn't get to the crank.
What is that? Yeah.
Look at the pickup. Ready for the money shot here?
Yep.
Uh-oh.
No!
Well, we just learned what rods were down when this thing was sitting. Oh, look at the crank.
Oh.
It was like that.
Yes, this right about here is where it was sitting. Because those ones are untouched. That's up.
Normal.
Not normal. I mean, that looks really good. Like better than anything else we've pulled apart recently, unfortunately. Fantastic. Now, the one thing I really worry about here, though, is water getting like onto the surface of the crank and corroding it or rusting it.
Like that.
Yeah. That's exactly what that is. You can't feel it. Like, that would clean up. Or maybe, honestly, if you run it. Yeah, if you ran it, it'd probably be okay. Yeah. But I guess what it really comes down to here is what are we doing with the engine, right? End of the day, water, no water. We're in this thing for so close to zero at this point after we got those Cook's headers off that you just can't complain. Like, salvage auction beggars can't be choosers, you know? Pretty much everything else that we take out, it's a package. It's an engine with some type of forced induction, whether it be supercharger, turbo, whatever. I think this one, though, is the first one that we're gonna view as like a collection of parts, not just something we're gonna take as is or after a refresh and throw it into something. We got ourselves an awesome blower setup here, but we've said it like 10 times. It doesn't really compute with a factory LS1. If we really push this thing, it would turn that engine to dust like that. So I think what will ultimately happen here is we'll wait until we find ourselves like a nice iron block. And maybe it's one where it was hit so hard in the front that the blower got whacked, but the engine survived, and we'll use that as our chance. That's when we'll take this and put it on an engine that you can really crank the power up on and make like 800 or 900 horsepower. Now, as for the engine, I guess with this, we're gonna have to rebuild it. There's really no getting around that. We'll take care of it. We'll do whatever we need to do to it. And then maybe we find another car that has a blown engine, but has like a nice smaller supercharger set up on it. Or maybe we'll even refresh it and set it up to run naturally aspirated and swap it into something real light. Like
1983 Toyota.
you had that ready to go. Yeah. Is the Hilux that light? I know they're light trucks, but
You took my quality swap.
What?
What do you mean?
What are you talking about?
I was Toyotas and engine swaps are my thing.
I was really specific, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you are.
Old Toyotas and engine swaps are my thing. What if you de-stroke it and make it a 9,000 RPM LS?
I want to do that so
it in
bad
Miata.
at some point.
let me know what you guys think. As for my official suggestion here, I think I'm gonna go with like a green Hellcat Charger that used to have a Honda engine in it. And if you're wondering why I'm suggesting a new engine for it, we're not really gonna do it, don't worry, but things have went bad.